Despite the fact that some people, like Dr. Craig, think they have lots of arguments for it, they're in fact determined entirely by where you were born and who your parents were and what they believed. Now, in that case, your beliefs are totally random, in effect, in relation to whatever might be the truth. Furthermore, religious beliefs notoriously contradict one another. There are at least 1,000 sects of so-called Christians. And there are at least 20 major religions in the world, within which there are a whole lot of sects. Most of which think that all the others are going to go to hell. Okay? So now, religion, of course, ignores these difficulties because it's very difficult to think straight about these things. And I certainly commend anybody, any theologian, who attempts to do it. So I have a great deal of respect for that. But I think for most people, almost by definition, probably not you, since you're here, but most people who believe do not want to make the effort to think about it. It's difficult. Furthermore, we are subject to something that is psychologically extremely well established, called confirmation bias, which means that we only notice those observations that confirm what we already believed. And we simply ignore those that do not. Okay? So, for example, is prayer effective? Well, when you actually test it, it turns out that it's not, although some guy in the 19th century called Bolton tried it and he found that people who were prayed for a lot tended to die slightly sooner. Actually, I think that God took them to his bosom earlier because of all the prayers. But it doesn't really, after they were praying for his life, not his death, so, you know. The fact is that prayer is a placebo. That is to say, it's like a sugar pill that has no chemical effect, but when it works, you think it works because of its chemical effect. We ignore cases where it doesn't work. Thirdly, the God of the Bible is indeed an evil bully. I might as well say it straight. And there's four headings under this general rubric. God cannot define what is good. And I'm sorry, in fact, I suppose I did anticipate one of the points, but I'm going to put it entirely positively. God condones evil, God promises and boasts of perpetrating the most awful evil, and gratitude to God is morally despicable. Okay, why can God's command not define what is good? Well, imagine if God commanded you to torture babies, and if God commanded you to rape, just to take those examples, would you accept that? No, and therefore what God commands is irrelevant to what you think is good. Furthermore, in practice, the God of the Bible did condone or command all kinds of horrible things, as a matter of fact, including rape. If you remember the story of the chap who pushed out his daughter to all these people who were about to rape his guests, his male guests, so that his daughter would be raped instead. Nice thing. God just wanted the right person to be raped. Okay? So, if you think of all the horrible things God has done, sacrifice of Isaac, please kill your son, and at the last moment, April Fool, here's a goat. Okay? This is slavery. Nowhere in the Bible is slavery ever condemned. So no one can say, I know slavery is wrong because it says so in the Bible. It does not say so in the Bible. Not in the New Testament or the Old Testament. Okay, forced marriage, perfectly common. Killing your child for mere disobedience is what you're supposed to do. And remember that Christ says, I'm not bringing a new law. It's the old law that you know. That includes such things. Genocide and revenge for offenses of the few, etc. In Revelation, the speaker says, Thou, Lord, hast created all things for thy pleasure. Sorry, misprint. Okay? What has he created for his pleasure? Tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, suffering, endless suffering of innocent animals and people, just for his pleasure. Furthermore, now this is where, of course, my personal interest comes in, I appeal to your moral sense. He says, He that believeth not shall be damned. That's me. Do really think I deserve eternal damnation and hellfire just because I can't bring myself to believe these old wives' tales? Now, furthermore, given the dependence that we've seen on the location of your birth, of what you believe, it means that God has been totally random in assigning some to be damned and some to be saved. You're born over here, you'll be saved. You're born over there, wrong parents, sorry, hard luck, you're damned forever. Now, the point about gratitude is this. Let me tell you a true story. There was a plane crash some years ago, and 20 people, I think it was 50 people were saved and 50 people died. For technical reasons, they interviewed someone who had survived. And that person said, now I know that God exists. What about the other fuckers? Now, I think that there's only two ways in which this person could have thought of it. He could have said, well, I, of course, deserve to be saved by the creator of the universe. The artificer of the Big Bang pointed to me and said, he deserves. And the others, let's kill those. Right? Well, really, can you condone this? Or maybe it was just totally random. That's called grace in theology. Completely arbitrary. I think the concept of grace is a great concept, actually, because it acknowledges, it's religious people acknowledging that as a matter of fact, everything that matters is deeply random. But then you can hardly say that God cares about fairness. All of this basically amounts to the classic argument from evil. God is omniscient, he knows everything, he is omnibenevolent, he's all good, he is omnipotent, and therefore he can do anything. So why doesn't God prevent evil? As clearly, manifestly, observation shows that he doesn't. Of course, you can tell a story about how it's all going to come out all right in the end, right? But you have to swallow the whole story for that even to make sense. And since there's so much compelling evidence that we will not survive our death, that no one can have a consciousness and experience pleasure or pain once that brain has dissolved into dust or ashes, right? This promised land where everything's going to be all right is clearly just a fairy tale. Finally, I want you to consider the possibility, and I know this is going to be incredibly hard for those of you who believe, but I think quite easy for those who don't, and maybe for some of you who are just on the edge, that you'll be able to see that actually life is a lot better without God. First of all, you can have all the good things that God brings you, as indeed the Greeks, the Chinese, the Indians had all the good things in terms of deathless art, in terms of wonderful literature, brought to them by gods who, as I said at the beginning, didn't need to exist in order to bring them all these goodies. Okay? So you can have everything without God. You can have art and use all those gods as metaphors and not just be confined to one. You can pursue mystical states. Mystical states are perfectly intelligible. We can recognize them for states that go with certain conditions of the brain. We can cultivate them by all kinds of techniques, which may include meditation, may include drugs. It doesn't matter. The point is that mystical states in no way require that you should believe in God. Even though, of course, those who believe in God attribute their mystical states to some sort of personal experience of God himself. And above all, not only can you still be a good person and seek justice and fight against cruelty and harmful prejudices without God, but, I submit, you're a lot more likely to. And there's evidence about that as well. For example, the simple evidence is very well known that in the God-fearing states of the United States, the so-called red states, there are a lot more rapes, there are a lot more murders, there are a lot more teenage pregnancies than there are in the so-called blue